All right, today we're going to talk about some of the lost voices of classical music. The absolutely brilliant women whose work was silenced by history, but is, thankfully, being rediscovered right now. And to do that, we're actually going to start with one of the most famous names in all of music.
You know the name Mozart, right? Of course you do. When you think of classical music, your brain probably jumps to a few key players: Beethoven, Bach, and Mozart. That name is basically shorthand for child prodigy for pure musical genius.
But here's the thing. The name Mozart actually belonged to two musical prodigies. One became a legend that we all know. The other, well, she was pretty much forgotten. And her story, it reveals so much about who gets to be remembered in history and who gets left behind.
So let's meet her. Her name was Maria Anna Mozart, but everyone called her Nannerl. And when they were kids, believe it or not, she was every bit as famous as her little brother, Wolfgang.
And I want to be super clear here. Nannerl wasn't just good. She was a star, a celebrated virtuoso. She was touring the great courts all across Europe, and the reviews from that time just raved about her incredible skill. She even wowed the Empress of Austria, a huge deal and a major patron of the arts. But get this, she wasn't just a performer, she was also a composer. And how do we know for sure? Because her own brother, Wolfgang, wrote letters to her praising her compositions. He was completely amazed by her work, calling one piece beautiful. I mean, talk about an endorsement. That's undeniable proof of her talent, coming from one of the greatest composers who ever lived.
So what happened? Well, her career came to a sudden, grinding halt. The moment Nannerl turned 18, she hit what was considered marriageable age. And just like that, her father pulled her off the tour circuit. Her education shifted from music to the arts of housekeeping. Her entire future pivoted from the concert stage to the home.
Nannerl's story, as tragic as it is, wasn't some isolated incident. Not at all. It was a symptom of a much bigger problem facing women back then. This invisible barrier that dictated who could have a public career in music and who couldn't.
This was the crazy double standard of the time. It was perfectly acceptable, in fact it was encouraged, for a woman to learn music as a kind of graceful hobby, something to do in the home. But to actually get on stage and perform professionally? Whoa. That was often seen as improper or even scandalous. For most women in Nannerl's class, the real career path was marriage. Singing was one of the only respectable exceptions.
The whole system was stacked against them. Women were often completely barred from the kind of advanced, formal training in composition that men just took for granted. They had to deal with condescending attitudes from critics and reviewers. And let's be honest, the entire musical establishment, from orchestras to publishers, was run by men. It was a cycle of exclusion.
But, and this is a really important but, despite all of this, some women found a way through. There were these remarkable, determined individuals who, against all the odds, managed to forge a real career in music.
To see the different paths that were possible, let's just compare Nannerl's fate with one of her contemporaries, a woman named Marianne von Martinez. While Nannerl's career was shut down, Martinez built this incredible, successful professional life in Vienna. Her compositions actually survived, we can listen to them today, and here's the crucial part. Martinez never married. Instead, she took control of her own destiny and opened her own singing school.
So how did she do it? Well, Martinez had a pretty unique situation. She had access to an amazing education, even taking lessons from a young Joseph Haydn. Yep, that Haydn. She became a central figure in Vienna's music scene, hosting these famous musical gatherings where even Mozart and Haydn would show up to play. Her talent was so undeniable that in 1774, she became the first woman ever admitted to a super prestigious music academy in Italy.
And this line of pioneers continues right into the 20th century, with absolute giants like Nadia Boulanger. She actually stopped composing early on, but became one of the most influential music teachers in history. And on top of that, she smashed another barrier as the first woman to conduct major orchestras, including the New York Philharmonic.
So this brings up a perplexing question, doesn't it? If women like Martinez were successful and respected in their own time, why are their names still so unfamiliar to most of us today? Well, that leads us right to our next section, how they got lost to history.
Contemporary composer Sally Beamish really puts it perfectly. She explains that even when these women were well-known and successful, they often failed to make it into the canon. And the canon is basically the official playlist of music history, the composers and the pieces that are considered important enough to be taught, studied, and performed again and again.
When you boil it all down, for centuries, the official story of classical music was written by men about men. The curriculum, the history books, the concert programs, they all reinforced this narrative that centered on a handful of male great masters. And that created a cycle of omission that just left women out. But here is the good news. That story is finally being rewritten. And that brings us to our final and most hopeful section. We are right in the middle of a very welcome rediscovery.
Right now, there is this amazing global effort to correct this historical imbalance. You have scholars digging through archives, uncovering these forgotten works. Musicians are actively choosing to program and perform this music. There are even special publishers re-releasing the scores, and new recordings are making their music available to everyone, everywhere, for the first time.
The music of Nannerl Mozart, of Marianne von Martinez, and countless others is finally emerging from the shadows. Their voices aren't lost. They were just waiting to be heard. And it leaves us with one really exciting question. As this rediscovery continues, whose voice will we hear next?